Hello and welcome. This is Tanya Brown, your spiritual business coach, and today I want to talk to you about how to start your own spiritual entrepreneurship. You have an idea, you have a gift, you want to explore it, you want to get your first 5 clients. Here's how we're going to do it. Now, let me just take you back for a second on how I just got started on my journey. I was always curious about all things spiritual. I love tarot cards, I love psychics, I love clairvoyance. I love the idea of this other world. It seemed like a fantasy world, a fairy tale. It seemed magically inclined in my mind. It wasn't very tangible. I just didn't understand it, and I was very curious to learn more. So I had always wanted to create my own business. I thought at the time I wanted to do gift baskets. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. I was always loved um, candles and soaps, and I loved all the self-care and pampering things. So I thought, you know what, wouldn't that be something interesting? So my idea was to find a company in New York that I could learn how to make candles and soaps. And here's where destiny kind of plays a part into it, at least in my instance. I wanted to do these things, and in all the research that I did, and I honestly thought I did a lot, but clearly I didn't, I could not find one company in New York City that taught you how to do this. And in retrospect, it's silly because off the top of my head, I would think that the Learning Annex or those kind of companies would have had that type of service, but I couldn't find it at the time. What I did find, which was counterintuitive to what I was looking for, was a gal that I used to follow for workshops was opening up and recommending a student for tarot card classes, which was incredibly random at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that would be fun. I want something interesting and active to do after work, something distracting, that has nothing to do with going to the gym, you know. And that's what I ended up doing. And I grabbed a friend because I thought, if I'm going to do this, let me get somebody to enjoy it with me. And a friend of mine who was so game, I was like, hey, you want to do it? She was like, sure. And we would show up at these classes, and it was not that many people there. If I said there was a handful, I'm really exaggerating. It was a handful, including me and my girlfriend and the teacher. And there's like literally one or two other people. And we would kind of make this silly, like, we would ask questions like, are we going to get a bonus this year? Or are we going to get a raise? Like, we'd ask questions that we cared about, what we really didn't care about. So we were focusing on just the enjoyment of doing the tarot cards and learning about the tarot cards. And the teacher, who initially started off being incredibly serious, started to veer towards the fun end of it. So, because we would bring bottles of wine. Because again, this was after work. So we were making this at a happy hour kind of a thing. And the teacher was kind of thrown back initially because she was teaching this in her own home. And after the first or second sessions, she would start to have appetizers. She kind of leaned into what we were doing. So again, we were making it fun and silly. And I did not even think that I was accurate. I remembered my friends would all say, oh my God, you're so good. Like, let's do a tarot card reading. And I just brushed this off as them just being lazy and wanting a free tarot card reading. And I really didn't think I was accurate. In my mind, I was just reading what the cards said. Now, thing was, it wasn't until I did a past life regression event with Brian Weiss that I ended up inadvertently doing a reading on a stranger. And just the Cliff Note version was, I'm holding an item that she gave me, and I got a vision of her mother and of her as a child, even down to the dog she had as a child. And I remember thinking, this is just incredibly random. This is incredibly odd. But it was until I told her what I got and she started to verify for me the accuracy, did I realize that this was something beyond what I thought it was. It wasn't random. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't lucky. I didn't have the words or the understanding to get what it was I was receiving. So when this happened, I decided, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. And this was me trying to hone in on, what is this gift? And again, I didn't even think it was a gift. I just thought it was something. I wasn't sure what it was. And I reached out to a ton of business networking friends. And I shared with them the story of how I randomly ended up doing a reading on a stranger at a Brian Weiss past life regression event. And if you ever have an opportunity to go to one of his events, go to it. I can't say enough good things about his book, Many Lives, Many Masters. That being said, that workshop changed my life, because from that workshop, I ended up doing a ton of readings all around the globe. And this is, when I say I honed in on my gift, because at the time I thought this was random, a coincidence. And I say this so there's so many clients that find me because they have a gift and they don't know what it is. I remember a client of mine, this is a couple years ago in the fall. Her father had passed. She did a workshop with me, and it was because of her father passing that opened up her gift, opened up her eye. She was able to communicate with him on the other side. And she did not know, like, how do I work this? How does this go? Like, what's the method? And that's how she found me. And when I say a lot of my clients find me because they're just clients who are meant to work with me, it sounds silly or trivial, but they do. They find me because of that. But that being said, I discovered through doing readings with strangers the how to work my gift. Now, let me explain for a minute, because there are no how-to books when it comes to being a psychic. And that's why I actually wrote two of them below. So feel free to click on and get a copy of my book. But the bottom line was there was no how-to book to understand, like, what am I going through? What does this look like? Is anybody else doing this? Because at the time, I had not seen psychics on television that received the information that I did. And when I say receiving, I would always see a psychic that's walking down the street going, oh my God, your mom has a message for you. Your dad's here. I never got that. And just to give you context, I receive information like a psychic, Tyler Henry is one of the first psychics that I saw that received information the way I did. Because I would see him going to a session and his mom would be driving. And by that I mean his mom driving, he's focused on the energy and the client that he's on his way to. So he's tapping in. He's receiving a download. And that's what I would do. When I would get on Skype or get on Zoom or get on the phone, I would just kind of connect or even go in person. There was one client that I'll never forget. I was going to meet her in a coffee shop because prior to COVID, I enjoyed going to coffee shops and meeting clients because it was that interpersonal aspect. And as much as I receive a ton of information via Zoom or Skype or the phone, nothing beats when you're physically right next to that person. And I've shared, if you've been a follower of my channel, you've heard stories of me doing readings with people all around the world. So there's no disparity in terms of getting a download or a message from somebody, halfway around the world. But if I'm sitting right next to them, it's a totally different feeling, to the point that and I look forward to going back to doing in-person readings just for that situation. I had a workshop that I did where I literally felt like my guide turned me in the direction of the person, which the funny thing was, they're turning me this way, and I'm like, oh, this message is for you, and the gal over here is like, no, this is for me. So they have a really good sense of humor. But my point was, my doing the readings all around the world helped me because it allowed me to take my ego out of it. And in the sense, when I'm reading, and I love the term flying blind, when I'm flying blind with somebody I don't know anything about, a stranger, somebody that I don't know prior to whatever conversations, it's awesome for me because I'm not projecting anything. When my friends, and they have done this, it's like, oh, tell me what you get for such and such. Okay, I want to say the best things. I want to say positive things, but I know too much about your story. And a lot of times my friends will say to me, remember we went drinking and you were very adamant about such and such, but then I said such and such. It's because when I'm having a couple cocktails and you ask me a question and my ego is basically like, down for the count, I'm more apt to respond without my ego getting involved. So when I'm doing readings with strangers, my ego is so not involved because I don't know who I'm talking to until they tell me. And I've had situations where I've described people's homes, when I'm on the phone, because I'm literally getting a vision of their backyard. And one, I actually gave her like 3 numbers. I'm like, they're giving me 3 numbers. She's like, yeah, that's my address. So my point is, when I'm doing readings with strangers, it verifies for me more than somebody I know. And that being said, going back to how to tap into your gifts, finding out what you're passionate about. I discovered that I loved all things spirituality, tarot cards. And again, I ended up taking a class on tarot cards, not thinking I'm getting to do a business out of it, and I still don't do a business out of it. When I first started doing readings for people, I would pull out the tarot cards just because I needed backup. And I did that to the point until I finally heard, like, enough with the cards. Like, you don't need the cards. But my point is finding the thing that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, and seeing how can you make a business out of that. Now, I shared the story of how I ended up becoming a clairvoyant, how I discovered that gift. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to finding clients, you find clients once you start to show the value of what you could do. I belong to a ton of business networking groups, and I offered a free reading. And I was beyond grateful and lucky that just about everybody raised their hand. And the thing that I loved about this, it was a very safe space. They were people who believed in that world. They were not judging me. They were like, I'll give it a crack. And because I was able to say things that I couldn't possibly know, they raved about me to other people within other communities. And as a result, through word of mouth, I got my first client. And that's the interesting thing. And I'll go on further to talk about when it comes to payment. As time goes on, in the beginning, you're just trying to show the value. You're trying to show what you can offer, something that they need or want or desire, and showing the benefit of it. But as time goes on, you start to realize the value of what you're doing. I very rarely quibble about or talk about the cost of payment because I'm past the point of trying to justify my value or my service. But in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I had anything to offer until I was doing readings and the value was shown to me. Now, that being said, I had people who were just kind of diminishing the idea of what they think the value was. Because when you start off as something free, over time, people will only expect you to be free in terms of service. And that's a whole nother conversation. But that being said, you getting your clients are basically through your referrals, doing a good job in your testing phase. And in my instance, I didn't realize my free readings were my testing phase. That was me just trying to get clarity and be clear on what I was doing. Like, how does this work? Just figuring things out. That was, in retrospect, that was my testing phase. So, yeah, why would I charge anybody? The charge was their time and my effort and energy, and same thing. And I was incredibly grateful for that. So hopefully this has helped you. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share in the comment section. What is the type of business that you're looking to create, and what are your gifts, and how can we support each other in that regard? Again, this is Tanya Brown, your spiritual business coach, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.